It started with a simple question after Indiana's playoff-clinching win. A reporter looked at Aaliyah Boston and asked about her season. She smiled almost shyly and said, "I like spicy." The room laughed, but that one word, spicy, carried more weight than anyone realized. Because what Boston and the Indiana Fever have done this year has been nothing short of bold, fiery, and against all odds. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not after the heartbreak of losing Caitlin Clark, the sophomore sensation, only 13 games into the year. Not after Sophie Cunningham, Khloe Bby, Sydney Colson, and Ari McDonald all went down too. 5 names. 5 contributors gone. What's left after injuries gut half your roster. Most teams fold. Most seasons die. But not Indiana. This year the Fever didn't just survive. They grew sharper, stronger, spicier. And when they marched into Washington and crushed the Mystics 94-65, it wasn't just another win. It was a statement, a battle cry, and a promise that this team wasn't done yet. So how did they get here? What exactly did Aaliyah Boston say that has fans buzzing, teammates inspired, and the WNBA on notice? And how did a roster patched together by hardship suddenly become the most dangerous team nobody wants to face in the playoffs? Stick around, because this isn't just about basketball. It's about grit, leadership, and a culture shift that might just change the Fever forever. Let's rewind. At the start of the season, the plan was simple. Caitlin Clark would lead Indiana into a new era. She was averaging 16 points per game, setting records for assists, and already becoming the face of the league. The Fever weren't just a team anymore. They were a spectacle, a movement. But when Clark went down with a torn groin, the air was sucked out of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The energy that had packed every seat turned to silence. The national media didn't just write the Fever off, they buried them. Analysts declared their season over. Fans braced for heartbreak, and then, one by one, the injuries piled up. Cunningham gone. McDonald out. Colson finished. Khloe Bby sidelined. At that point, Indiana didn't look like a professional roster. It looked like a rotating door. 18 different players suited up at some point. Imagine taking a team photo at the start of the season, then halfway through realizing most of those faces weren't even around anymore. This wasn't basketball, it was survival. But survival forged something no one saw coming. Never. Doubt yourself and what you're capable of. That's what Aaliyah Boston told reporters after the Fever clinched their playoff spot. And it wasn't just a soundbite. It was a mantra the Fever had lived all season. Boston wasn't just putting up numbers. She was anchoring a broken roster, keeping it alive, and reminding everyone inside that locker room that belief could be their greatest weapon. And belief became reality in Washington. The Mystics were ready. At least they thought they were. Early on, they traded punches with Indiana, keeping the score tight. Indiana's offense stumbled, the rhythm wasn't there, and Washington smelled opportunity. If you were watching that first half, you probably felt it, that creeping sense that maybe this was the night the injuries finally caught up with them. But then came the third quarter. In just 10 minutes of basketball, the Fever turned the game upside down. They smothered Washington. Every passing lane was cut off. Every shot was contested. The Mystics scored just 9 points the entire quarter. 9. The Fever? They exploded. Transition buckets, deep threes, punishing drives. By the end of the frame, the score wasn't just tilting Indiana's way, it was already over. From there, the lead ballooned to 20. Then 25, then 30. The final buzzer read 94-65, but the message was even louder than the score. This wasn't luck. This wasn't scraping by. This was dominance, and leading the way, Aaliyah Boston, steady as ever, posting another double-double, 12 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. Her 17th of the year, breaking the franchise record. But it wasn't just Boston. Natasha Howard poured in 17 points, punishing Washington inside. Aerial Powers came off the bench with 15, flying around the court like a spark plug. Shea Petty, perfect from deep, hitting all 3 of her threes for 13 points. 5 different Fever players finished in double figures. This wasn't a one-woman show. It was an orchestra. And Boston was the conductor. If Caitlin Clark is the Fever's spark, Aaliyah Boston is the foundation. She's the anchor that held this team together when everything threatened to fall apart. When she spoke after the win, she didn't brag about her double-double. She didn't talk about proving people wrong. She looked at her teammates and reminded them why they made it this far. We never doubted ourselves. We never doubted we could be in the playoffs. Even if things looked harder, it was about sticking together. Playing with joy. Playing together, regardless of who's on the floor. That's the kind of leadership you can't teach. Boston doesn't just rebound. She steadies. She doesn't just score. She lifts. And her words became a rallying cry on the court, online, everywhere. Fans plastered it across social media. Teammates echoed it in interviews. Never doubt yourself became the Fever's unofficial slogan, and it's working. Think about this. Since 2015, Indiana hasn't had a winning record. They haven't made the playoffs back-to-back since 2015-2016. But now, after a season that should have broken them, they're here. 7th seed locked in. A winning record secured. And they're heading back to the postseason with momentum. This isn't just about 1 year. It's about building a culture. Stephanie White deserves her flowers here too. Most coaches would have panicked, tried to overhaul schemes, or folded under the weight of constant injuries. White simplified. She reminded her players of their toughness. She streamlined rotations. She gave every woman on the roster a role to own. And the players responded. What you saw in Washington wasn't a fluke. It was the product of a locker room that refused to break. Now let's be real. Indiana's road isn't easy. The Fever are staring down brutal matchups, Atlanta, Las Vegas, or Phoenix. All three are stacked, and the best-of-3 format gives Indiana just one guaranteed home game. But here's the thing. This team has already beaten those opponents with this exact shorthanded roster. They've shown they can punch above their weight. They've shown they can hang with the best. And if you're one of those playoff teams looking at the bracket, ask yourself, do you really want to face the team that just blew out Washington by 29 without its superstar? Do you want to face the team that turned its weakness into firepower? Do you want to face the team that believes more than anyone else? Because as Stephanie White told her locker room after the win, ain't nobody going to want to see us. And she's right. Lexi Hull became a defensive demon. Shea Petty turned into a sniper. Natasha Howard rediscovered her dominance. Aerial Powers became a spark plug. And most importantly, Aaliyah Boston transformed from rising star into true leader. Now imagine this team when Clark comes back in 2026. Imagine her walking into a locker room that already has playoff DNA, that already knows how to win without her, and that now has Boston as its anchor. The injuries that were supposed to break Indiana might have actually built a dynasty. So here we are. The Indiana Fever are back in the playoffs. They're superstars in street clothes. Their roster has been torn apart and stitched back together. But their belief? Stronger than ever. Aliyah Boston said it best. Never doubt yourself and what you're capable of. That's not just a mantra. That's the reason Indiana is here. That's the reason they're dangerous. That's the reason the WNBA should be scared. Because if this is what the Fever can do with half a roster, what happens when they're whole again? If you're fired up for the Fever's playoff run, drop a Fever playoffs in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out on the stories behind the game. Click the video on your screen, and we'll see you in the next one.